Welcome to another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast. And I have the absolute pleasure of being here with Marisa Sullivan, who is this all around amazing person. Marisa and I are both in a magical group of healers and light workers and change makers and fire starters. And I have just been really excited to sit and chat with her because every couple of words I'm like, yep, that's it. And so we get to benefit from so much of Marisa's wisdom today. So let me go ahead and read her bio. Marisa Sullivan is a modern day mystic, a dance mom tantrika, a pleasure witch. She teaches women and couples sexual empowerment, sacred sexuality, how to maximize the magic and medicine of sexual juiciness, how to be authentic in our sexual expression, inhabiting our yes and no, and understanding the power of pleasure. She shares her awe and respect of the wisdom of our anatomy, especially the female genital and pelvic bowl anatomy and their entwinement. She helps women balance their menstrual cycles, harness their fertility, birth, mother, partner, build communities, vision, and create their lives. She is a mind, body, life journey healer using yoga, breath, meditation, Reiki, ritual, yoni steaming, joy, laughter, breathwork, creative play, and sexual education. She has been teaching and exploring for more than 25 years. She believes love is a superpower we can all harness to effect change in our lives and the world. Woo! All right.
I gave you a mouthful, and
it was so juicy, and I could feel like my womb, like, yeah.
Yes. Me too. It was really fun to listen to. Thank you for reading it.
Everyone knows that they are in for a treat after that introduction. So let's start with how you even got into this work.
Yeah. I got into this work. I was 29, 30, and I dropped into the fact that suddenly sex was amazing. And that, wow, that I hadn't really noticed that before. So I became really curious about that. And so it was following my own journey that sex can be so amazing, and that we can do certain things to make it more amazing, and that journey, like as I stepped into it, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. So it definitely started out with yoga, that I was breathing fully into my pelvic floor for the first time. And with yoga, that I was aware that it wasn't just about my pussy, although my pussy was amazing and I wanted to know more about it, but that my pinky was as important as my pussy, and that they were totally connected. Like that my whole body had the capacity for joy and pleasure. It was not localized. But again, I looked into the genital anatomy, and it was just so mind-blowing to learn about it and to recognize that nobody had ever told me or taught me, and I had no idea. So I just went on this self-study journey of books and classes and everything I could do. And it sort of started with the genital anatomy. I became the Gspot and female ejaculation became very important to me, and its health importance. And then the pelvic anatomy led on to pelvic floor work, led to yoni steaming at some point, led to sacred sexuality of a lot of different cultures, global cultures, but starting with India and Tantra in India.
Wow.
There wasn't
So you traveled to India. You traveled to India.
I did, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I did. And that, yeah, I was lucky. I mean, that was a really a journey about asana and physical posture. So I didn't get to study the sacred sites in India around sexuality, but I knew about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It just continues to, about birth. And, I did become a mother. I am a mother of a 15-year-old.
Yeah. So let's talk about our anatomy, because I don't think many of us know, and I didn't know a lot about our bodies until I became a doula. So until I was studying it to support other people, I just didn't know where things were and what the function was. So I think for most of our listeners, the case is the same. And I also firmly believe that once you know what's there and what the function is, then you yourself have more confidence in your body. You're no longer scared.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us about that. What are we missing? What do we need to know?
And that I find that is so true. Just having a picture and then of what's there, and then putting that picture with your insides.
Yeah.
Then and then it's not some magic stroke or that what's there, but just that in connection to it, and the connection from the actual genital anatomy to where it connects to the pelvic musculature.
Yeah.
And then to visualize that. So and it's interesting to hear that there's sometimes so many different opinions that are different, and I can get frustrated. but my biggest teacher was Sherry Winston. My glasses are fogging up. It's like it's hot in here. It's like this is a hot topic.
This is a hot topic. This is a hot topic.
But Sherry Winston was an important teacher that led me to study the anatomy. So her books, and it's all about the clitoris. It's all about the clitoris, and it's like, no, it's not all about the clitoris. The clitoris is amazing.
Yeah.
The clitoris is amazing, and that the clitoris is, I loved that book, The Clitoral Truth. Have you ever read that book?
I haven't, but I love that title.
Isn't that a great title? So Rebecca Chalker, she's like, the clitoris, what you see is just the tip of the iceberg, that what you see.
Wow.
So just the clitoris, it's what we see is just the tip of the iceberg, and knowing that those legs are hidden and those are in there, and there's a shaft. Like, we have a shaft, baby. I mean, we have a couple of shafts, but and then that they when they get juicy, they all start to connect. So then some people, talk about the vestibular bulbs, so it's like, where is all the erectile tissue? So the clitoris is one piece of erectile tissue. And then those vestibular bulbs, which are laying underneath the labia, some people start talking about them like they're part of the clitoris, but they're not. They meet the clitoris when we get really aroused, but they're actually a separate piece right around the mouth of the vagina. And then there's that, my favorite. I mean, it's not they're all, but it kind of is my favorite, the Gspot, which I call it the Gspot, meaning G-E-E, the G-spot. Because when the other thing, and we'll get there later, but a lot of these things are named after some guys that think they discovered them.
Oh, yeah. And we've seen that before, right? With nations around the world.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's exactly
Sounds familiar. Yep.
Same damn thing. Let's cut this up and name it. Yeah. So the G-spot is actually, Dr. Grafenberg was actually really cool. I recently discovered. I was angry for so long that it's named after him.
Yeah.
But he was actually really cool and was a big supporter of women's pleasure, and got a lot of flack for it. He was revolutionary. I didn't know that when I first went into my G-spot work. Yeah. So another thing we could call the G-spot is the female prostate. And there is movement to call it that. And it's not a lot of people call it that. So the female prostate, the erectile tissue that is there as a pleasure protector of our urethra. It's this erectile tissue that puffs up and becomes a mattress pillow because the urethra really doesn't want to be banged and hit. The urethra is very fragile. So when we're juicy, and the more juicy we can get, that female prostate, that G-spot puffs up and protects the urethra. So that's why we can't have any kind of penetration until that's all in place. Right. And so that has been a big thing to understand. UTIs, a lot of UTIs are from premature penetration of any kind of premature banging up against the urethra.
Everyone needs to hear this.
Everyone, and not everyone.
Yeah.
And not just intercourse, right? Anything that penetrates. So, all my lovely queer folk is anything that's going in there that's too much of a force before it's like, okay, yeah. So that G-spot, that is such a wonderful area. And I think that and this is sexologists will talk and disagree, but that we're all absolutely capable of squirting, of ejaculating from it. And that it's a built-in health process that has been culturally trained out of us. Wow. So, yeah. And then I love, like Sherry Winston is like, it's the ejaculate fluid is antimicrobial, antibacterial. It's made to fight anything that doesn't want to be in our beautiful, lovely vagina mucus membrane system. And a natural douche to just, okay, next.
Yeah.
So that anatomy and again, like I feel like once you have the map, sometimes people like, G-spot actual touch, but I don't think it's necessary to engage any of the tools. You could simply visualize and breathe and activate yourself to meet wherever you are, on your body or the system. And then there's that lovely perineal bunch of erectile tissue that is hanging out at behind the perineum, in between the anus and the back of the vagina, and that and the clitoris is like and the G-spot, and all these different places that we could vibrate from. And then the cervix, and like what's going on with the cervix, and how magical and how much potential there is when we can connect to the cervix. And that vagus nerve is running through the cervix, so that we're socially comfortable and safe. And then when you're super juicy in that cervix, which, like, if you bang it, when some people like really that intense pain at the cervix when it's right there, it could be great. But then when you're super juicy and that cervix gets pulled up and back to make room for all those little nerves behind it, it is a fertility thing to invite that semen, that seed, all the way to the back, closer to it. And then there's that potential for that deep cervical, which is so magical.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow.
And then, to lastly, like, also there's so much more, but, and then the, like, butthole pleasure, because it's like the butthole, take it or leave it as however you like it, but it's like wired up for lots of pleasure. I mean, the perineal stuff is right there. You don't have to access it from there. You can get it vaginally but then there's like the two nerves that are two sexual nerves.
Yeah.
Both of them pass through the anus and get there. So it's really geared up as well for lots of pleasure.
Like, you make the body sound absolutely magical, which it is, but this is the most magical I've ever heard the body be described. I can imagine how playful and fun and just life-giving your classes are when you go more deeply into teaching this.
Well, and I have to say, in your presence, you really excite me too. So I'm like, I am there. I am here. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so let's talk about the colonialism
mm,
of our bodies,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because,
yeah,
obviously we started talking about the naming of the G-spot, and luckily that guy was like pro women, pro our pleasure, but there's so much that has either been taken from us, hidden from us, painted in some different light so that there's shame associated with it. So tell me more about like what
yeah,
the hell that is, how it started, and like what's still happening. Like how are we still
yeah,
living in
yeah,
this, you know?
yeah. I love that there are these movements to change terminology. So you said shame. What now there is a movement to call the main genital nerve complex is
Mm,
actually called the pendulum nerve, which
mm,
means from Latin, it means
mm.
shame. It means shame.
Oh,
It
wow.
means shame. The nerve complex that runs, there's two of them, but one of them is the main one is that, and I'm crying. It that runs from the genitals to the brain is called
Mhm.
shame, the shame
And
nerve.
like I'm actually feeling that deeply because we know that language or spells, it's how you manifest. You are speaking something into being,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Language is huge. Yeah, and the word masturbate, which
Mm-hmm.
now I use self-pleasuring,
Yeah.
self-loving. I'll slip into it if I feel like people aren't getting it. I'll slip into
Mm-hmm.
saying masturbate. So this is, that's church. That's the Christian church that
Mm-hmm.
overrode our original tribal pagan religions.
Mm-hmm.
But masturbate comes also from Latin. It means to pollute with one's hands.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this is English, so I don't know this is the language that the culture that I was brought up in.
Which is what culture? For those
I
who
was,
don't know.
yeah, yeah. I come from Irish and Italian lineage.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I always get mixed up if I'm third or fourth
Mm-hmm.
generation. I guess I'm third. Yeah, third generation in both lines. So I connect to my pagan roots.
Yeah.
There's incredible goddess traditions in Italy that
Yeah.
are still, you can still see them. There's
Mm-hmm.
yoni steaming that went on in Italy. So in
Mm.
terms of, yeah, and so to step into that, like culturally, when we burned the witches, and then I was raised in Massachusetts. I was raised in Massachusetts in
Mm.
the territory, the Shawshene people and the
Wow.
Massachusetts people, Wampanoag, raised in Massachusetts, came to New York. But I have lived in Japan and I have lived in England briefly each. Was very much interested in Japanese culture for many years. It was I must pass live for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. So when we burned the witches, when we took away the women. So at that time, there's an incredible book called Making Men of Women's Medicine. I have wrote it down before.
Mm.
So, there was a witch burning, there was a destroying of our herbal medicine,
Mhm.
and there was the loss of the womb steaming that existed all over Europe when we took away, and patriarchy, male took over women's medicine, and they
Yeah.
wanted to make money from it. They wanted
Right.
our money and our power.
Yeah.
So we lost a lot through
Mhm.
Europe. And then and really you can really see it through steaming as cultures came through
Mhm.
from Africa, through the Caribbean,
Mhm.
from Asia. We, as colonialization happened, the the church, the male
Mhm.
medicine, the patriarchy said, you can't do that beautiful, wonderful medicine that you women are doing. You have to go to our doctor. So we lost steaming from many cultures. It's global. The herbs were global, the way women got together and took care of each other through menstruation, through birthing, through everything. So much wisdom was lost with colonialization. That labeling, it's all over inside of the female genitalia. It's not, we mentioned the Gspot, Bartholin, there's a whole bunch. It's just, and so it's so beautiful, in Africa. And colonialization did that, went in and carved up tribal lands and named them a country. And then to see the process of countries taking back their names and taking back. So I feel like when we learn our anatomy and we learn the names and we learn the language, we take back ownership. It feels like it is owned by others in the naming.
I can feel that, like both the grief and the empowerment that can come from that.
Yeah. And can we give a shout out to Haiti at this moment, please?
Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah.
So there's a couple of places in the world where womb steaming, vaginal steaming is still rooted and present in the culture and was not lost. And Haiti is one of them.
Yes.
And Haiti fought off. Right?
Yes.
Haiti fought off that colonialism. And one of the things that we see is there's still womb care in this deep ways. And we see it all over where families held on to it. And oh yes, my grandma did that. My auntie did that. And they did it secretly. They kept it. They said, don't tell anyone. So, love to Haiti right now. We need our help.
Yeah. So much liberation that was spread across the world was started by Haiti. Just so much of our liberation. So I always have this, this image of Haiti as the liberators, as the brave ones that got things started, so that the others of us were like, hell yeah, we're done with this crap.
Yeah. And we don't honor it. So everyone out there who doesn't know this, look it up. How the American Revolution and the French Revolution, they were sparked on from Haiti.
So what you shared earlier, as you spoke more about the colonialism of our bodies, it's making me think of our current prenatal care system and birthing in hospitals, and how we are met by doctors who are often males and don't know the magic of our bodies. And even doctors who aren't men, they haven't been taught the magic of our bodies because it's just not a part of their curriculum. So as I work with birthing people who've experienced loss and are on their healing journey, and I hear terms like incompetent cervix or even infertility, I change that language, because those words came from someone who is disconnected from the wisdom of our bodies.
She's not progressing. She's not progressing. She's not progressing in your timeline to get to the golf course.
Exactly.
But she is progressing in her time. What else could she be doing? All that.
So to call any part of someone's body incompetent, like just that word feels like a curse word each time it comes out. So my lips are almost like, we don't say that. It's like not acknowledging that the body is constantly in change and constantly in motion, constantly responding to the energy that it's being given. So I'm saying that to say, whatever the names doctors give you and the experience that you're currently going through, you don't have to take it. It's not yours.
No. No.
So the power that we can have in these rooms when we know our bodies, right? And so we hear those terms and we know that those labels aren't ours. It's just someone else's word for it, but it isn't ours. Infertility isn't ours. We might need more support with fertility, but infertility isn't a thing that you have to accept.
And there's a few places I could think from here, but and also in that we're all experiencing beyond and this is what I find in studying the anatomy, everything, beyond our individual traumas, we are having societal, cultural, communal traumas that are being enacted. So whatever there is that too in this fertility, we have not, the medical system has not respected the womb and the female cycle, you know, the fact that we thought that birth control was a perfectly fine thing to do, to tell a woman's body that she's pregnant all the time, that wouldn't have an impact, that hasn't had a cultural impact on us. So also just, we're all doing absolutely the best we can in a culture that has not respected the womb. Is not respecting earth, you know. So, and to pause also as we step into medicine, and bless all of you doctors and gynecologists and birth workers, that, like, you're all doing the best you can in a system that is not made some wrong turns. You know, so to know the history of American gynecology, you know, that I'm not going to say his name. I always forget the asshole's name. We don't need to say it, right? But that gynecology is a surgical medicine, that it's not attending to the whole womb system, that this man wanted to be able to get inside of a woman's womb and out without killing her. He wanted to be able to enact his colonization of that womb. Medicine wanted to colonize our womb. A C-section is a blessed, wonderful thing. When I had a C-section, I wouldn't be alive. My daughter wouldn't be alive. But that our medicine, all of our gynecological history is based on this man that wanted to do that. And also that he did it at the cost of so many beautiful Black women who were enslaved and were not free. And, you know, if you look at it, that he did it, and I'm sorry for, and it just, you know, you pause for trauma, and that he, you know, did it without anesthesia to many unknown number of Black women. We know some of them. And then went on to use anesthesia when he figured out how to do it with white women. And that's our medical history down into the birthing rooms. So it's just not on any good footing or foundation, right? So we're in a process of reclaiming. Here we are, right?
Reclamation.
We're in reclamation. So many birth workers, so much. And so, once you hear all these things, you pause and you tune back into your body, find your own language, tune back in.
Thank you for that. All right. So I know that a lot of the people that you work with, they've gone through some sexual trauma, right? And perhaps what they're seeing is that it's blocking their ability to experience pleasure, blocking their ability to fully be free as they're connecting with their partners. So tell me about that.
That was, you know, part of my journey, which I didn't say earlier, is that I have my own sexual trauma. So really I was in pursuing, as I stepped into this exploration of sex, I realized, oh, right, this is going to heal my trauma. And actually I was very promiscuous. Made this great performance art where I would talk about sex and get naked, and it was really funny and fun. But I also was like completely disassociating when I was having sex, and I was, you know, outside of my consent because that's what I knew. So it was my own study was healing to my own trauma, you know, all the way along. I did a lot of healing myself. So yes, sexual trauma can absolutely limit. It could block our pleasure. And there's all these reasons and ways that we could be blocked. And maybe it's manifesting physically. Maybe it's so many things. And just investigating it, honoring the trauma and asking how it's landing. And I think just noticing the blocks, right? Now, so there's this lovely thing that I feel is very helpful. It's from Peter Levine and the nervous system and trauma, and that we have this thing called in CYBAM, these different channels. So this is one of the things about trauma. So you have different channels where we interpret any experience, and it really works well sexually.
Yeah.
So we could be in the sensation channel. And what is your sensation channel? It's your feeling. We could be in the imagery channel. And this is where we may get stuck, in a certain kind of fantasy. At SX only has to go this way. There's the image channel. There's the BAM behavior channel. We always have a certain behavior. We have the affect channel. Like, this is where, like, many times I run into people, they can have an orgasm by themselves, but they can't have an orgasm with a partner, because then there's intimacy. So, or they can have it this way, but not that way. Like, when is the affect channel?
Yeah.
When does the heart shut down? When is it not safe? Investigating that affect channel, and then BAM, the affect, the meaning making, right? So looking at these different channels, one of your channels might be blocked. So this disassociation, we might get to a place where we just, it gets sexy, there's passion, and I go into free. And that's my pattern. When I was violated, I went into freeze.
Yeah.
So my freeze gets activated and I leave my body. So I could use the sensation channel to orient myself in the present. Oh, he or she has their hand right on my shoulder.
Yeah.
There's that shoulder and there's that hand. And here I am to look at it, to really engage that sensation channel. Or we might engage two channels, or we might look at it like, I have this secret fetish. I have this, and not to be ashamed of it, like whatever's going on but maybe if trauma is blocking it, so you only have sexuality in this patterning. What's going on there? What are the other possibilities? And this is where I love now. The most powerful tool for me is in what's come up most. It's been for many years, but Betty Martin's work in the Wheel of Consent, and really, what do I want? So maybe trauma has brought some image that we lost that connection to. What do I want? Not somebody who is perpetrating. What did they want? How it's outside of myself. Now it's really coming back to it in my own power. And what do I want in this? And it's always in the here and now. And again, so that trauma might take us back into the past, and the past is in our body. But if we're coming back into the here and now, and what do I want now?
Yeah, that's really powerful. So there's something that I want to go back to, because I want people to really be present to what we mean when we say our bodies have been colonialized. Because I think it is linked to trauma and the disassociation and blockages that we're currently experiencing, right? So one example that I can think of is we might not feel like we have ownership of our bodies. So the witch hunting and the burning, and a lot of us have this negative connotation of witches, so the broomstick and the black, even though all of those things were true in some cases, right? But what I think of witches, they were the medicine woman. They were the ones who understood herbs and the natural healing, right? And those the hunting and the burning, I learned the other day listening to Dr. Christian Northrup, those took place over 300 years. 300 years. So imagine the imprint that we would still be holding in our bodies if we lived those past lives. And for people who aren't into that, if our ancestors lived those lives and we're still holding those genes. So over centuries, we've been taught that living in these bodies, we are less than, we aren't priority, right? And so we might not even feel like we have ownership of our bodies. We might feel as though our bodies are to the service of fill in the blank, children, partners, caretakers of, being caretakers of the community. So that is colonialism, when we don't even have agency and ownership over ourselves. So I'd love to hear Yeah, I'd love to hear how you see that manifest in the people that you work with, because I don't want people to like hear these terms
Yeah.
and not know what it means in their lives right now.
It's wild. I'm having this desire to talk about, I just had a really big realization, but it's not sexual. But
Yeah.
just recently I had this amazing realization. My Italian grandmother, we would go there and we would eat, and the food was so important and the taste delicious. And then my Irish grandmother, we would be driving there and we'd say, oh, what kind of horrible thing are we going to have to eat? Oh, it's awful. It was like the food was terrible. She'd always make some huge mistake. And I just always had this idea she was a bad cook, and and she was less than. Wasn't until recently, and I felt it. I was talking and I felt it in my body that my family left during the potato famine and their land was taken away. They lost their farm. They lost their connection to the land. They lost their connection to food. And there was this intergenerational piece that she had lost connection to food. It had been taken away from her. There was no delight in food. There was no passion to food. That was the tragedy that their disconnection happened through. So I just recently felt that. And that's not sexual, but that's, but that's pleasure in food. She would take pleasure in food. She would take pleasure in lobster like that, and then she found it, in Massachusetts, she found it, that was, but she didn't have her ancestral pleasure connection anymore. So how does that come up? Yeah, we were connected when we were together, paganism, and we were connected to the moon, and we were bleeding together, and we were taking herbs, and there was some woman in the village that we would go to, or some auntie that would teach us, and that was lost. And we went to, and we go to the doctor, and we believe this wisdom from this other system. Yeah. So I see that women coming in, and I have my opinions about birth control and IUD. I don't think it's a helpful path. And we might have to use them. And I know there's reasons, but I'm really questioning it. So I do run into a lot of women that have had an IUD and it's gone wrong. And there's a whole womb trauma that then cuts off sexually. And so then there's a reclamation process that medical process may have disconnected sexually. I'm running into a lot of women who are getting disconnected because of HPV and cervical issues. And then that's just manifesting a lot of ways. And a lot of people could walk through that, have HPV, and it doesn't affect them sexually. But I do run into a fair amount of women that it then brings a disconnection to their womb, to the pleasure spaces that are connected to it. And then there's a process of reclamation, of going back in, working with that, healing physically with the steaming, and then reclaiming the anatomy, and then stepping back into pleasure through a very here and now, what do I want process.
Thank you. So let's talk about some of the different tools that you use to support the people that you work with. Well, let's start with the people who come to you, right? So I mentioned it in the bio, but would love to hear it from you. Like, who are the people who are attracted to you, who find you, how you help them, and the different tools that you use?
Yeah. So I really study more the vagina and the clitoris and the womb. What I love to use the term yoni because it's the whole kit and cadoodle, everything. So I'm more that anatomy. I do check in on testicles and penises, and I can give some help around that quite a bit. And I'm learning more as I go, but it's generally the uteral vagina system that come to me. And often any time along that process of wanting to mother is maybe wanting to mother and attracting the wrong partners sexually, partner wise. So stepping into your own self, then it sort of unfolds. They're kind of like, oh, I wish I had a partner to practice this with. And the next thing you know, they're sitting there with another person in the workshop. And will you scratch my head? Will you give me a hug? And I hear from them, they've found their best friend. This whole time was right there. And finally they're with them and they're about to have a baby.
Oh my gosh.
and then it often it's like in that baby. So lately there's a lot of people in the baby making process that are sex becoming work and trying to rekindle and take the pressure away from sex as you're in that fertility process. Any part of the fertility process, the baby making process, the postpartum process, and how to reconnect. All of those processes I connect with women and couples. And any of those kind of a lot of pelvic pain for various reasons, pelvic pain and sexual. So then having trouble wanting sex and being involved in sex. So all of that and the tools. So I'm so grateful for Steamy Chick, Kelly Gazar. So I have done a lot of training with her. I keep not finishing my last pieces to put my name on her website, but she's amazing. So I've done a lot of study with her. And so I do use womb steaming and it's miraculous. It does heal trauma. It's very pleasant. It heals so many things. It's so good. And for so many things. And I've seen evidence of it, with clients in fertility and reconnecting to the pleasure space in this other way.
So what is womb steaming or vaginal steaming? And how is it that it actually works? I'm always interested in what's the mechanism behind that?
Yeah. I love that it's all the elements. You have the herbs. You don't have to have herbs. You can do vaginal steaming with some salt and some vinegar and some water. Yeah, you don't even need the herbs. But if you bring in, it's herbal medicine. It's herbal medicine. I'm not an herbalist, but I know what my teachers have taught me. And I'm learning. So different herbs will support different things. The same way we drink a tea or put them in a capsule and ingest them, you can apply them to the mucous membranes and they're going in. And we know that now with our CBD oil on our tongues and the Bach remedies. So you're taking herbs and putting them in hot water. That's your earth element. Then you're taking water and you're taking water and you're boiling it. You're bringing in fire. You're heating it. You're bringing in that heat, the sun, the fire. You're boiling it so you create steam, that air, and steam has to go up. And steam is powerful. We have steam engines, right? We put trains across the country with steam. We heat our houses with steam, and that steam goes up. So you take those herbs up into the vulva, into the mucous membrane. It goes through the whole vagina. It's going into the mucous membranes. It's going in. The steam is carrying it up through the cervix, up into the uterus, out the fallopian tubes, which that's Mr. Fallopian named those. We like to think we're going to call them the trumpeter tubes, like those trumpeter flowers. So fertility wise, the steam, then it comes down and cleans. There's might be mucus. So Steamy Chick, Kelly Gazar talks a lot that the whole system is very clean. But if there's mucus stuck there, just like when you've got a nose and it's filled up, and when your nose is filled up with mucus, then the things get stuck in there, and that's when you can get a sinus infection. That's when the virus can get stuck. But if you keep cleaning, then so she'll say, and she's a dataist. She has a master's in keeping scientific data. So if you keep cleaning the mucus, then cancer, she even says STDs, things can't stick. They can't stay there. Scar tissue breaks up scar tissue. Less that fibroid cyst. I mean, you think about it, you have pimples and you put yourself face over a steam, you open up the pores, you clean it out. It's the same thing with a cyst.
That makes sense. So
Yeah.
how often would you recommend, so their vaginal steams and their womb steams, are they one in the same, or are they directed to those areas?
So that's a term that so, really that's why yoni steaming is so great. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the whole thing. So we could,
Mm,
womb steaming, it's the same, or you could say perineal steaming. There also is a process. Some cultures did fumigation. They use smoke. Sometimes they use smoke and brought the herbs in
mm-hmm.
like that. So different herbs, some for different situations,
Mm-hmm.
different recommendations for different situations. The kind of,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not, there are some general, like in menopause, and ideally I should do it once a week to keep my system clean.
Got it. Got it.
I honestly, I'll end up probably once a month. I do it. Maintenance for menstruation. And there's no one rule, but a
Mm-hmm.
maintenance, if everything is going well, you could do weekly, you could do before and after your menstrual cycle,
Got it.
before and after your bleed. But then fibroids, so that's where, I do a consultation where
Mm-hmm.
I'll meet with you and discuss everything and then make a
Mm-hmm.
recommendation. And then
Mm-hmm.
honestly, from the recommendation, you're always kind of watching your system and troubleshooting along the way. And you
Mm-hmm.
start cautious, and depending on, your cycle. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the just this one fact, and it's very sad. I only encountered steaming when I was just entering menopause. So I did use it a lot for my own menopause, but I didn't get to
Mm-hmm.
use it for my own menstruation. But the fact that if there's dark blood, that's old blood.
Mm-hmm.
That's last month's blood or the month before. That a healthy menstruation is a bright pink blood. So then we're looking, oh, there's dark blood. I need to do more steaming.
Yeah.
Something's not flowing.
Right.
And no, that should be common. That should be, I blow my nose. I have green mucus. I'm really sick. I have
Right.
dark, oh, honey, you have dark blood? Oh, let's get you on that steaming. Moms and daughters
Yeah.
ideally would be doing that together.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So I have a steaming story.
Mm-hmm.
That expression was funny. Steamy. It's not a steamy story. It's a steaming story. So we spoke maybe like a month ago, a couple of weeks ago, and we started talking about steaming. And I think a few days after that, I had an acupuncture visit and was treated to a steam after my acupuncture session. And that was my first steam. And I could just feel that area like it was breathing.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's always interesting how, or quote unquote, the normal state of our body, we don't realize what's tight or heavy or out of balance. And then when you do this lovely thing, there is like, just like an exhale, like an
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
so good. I was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
I should do
Yeah.
this more often.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I'm
I'm so
definitely pro
glad.
steaming now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
All
there's
right.
so many ways, like post-birth. It's in many cultures. This is
Mm,
back to colonial. I mean, it's awful what we lost. Like so many African cultures, Caribbean cultures, that
mhm.
it was all people did it
Yeah.
after birth to
Yeah.
clean out and replenish the womb.
Yeah.
Yes, it's pleasurable.
Mhm.
It's pleasant. It's very pleasant.
Mhm.
So it also is, and it brings circulation. It
Mhm.
brings prana, energy, blood flow. The
Yeah.
heat brings circulation in there. So you inhabit it. It's a great aphrodisiac. It makes you all halfway to juicy. It
Mhm.
makes you sleep better, dream better. Most likely,
Mhm.
some people maybe they don't like it, but the general,
Yeah.
it feels good. So, and Kelly Gazar and Kimberly Ann Johnson did a beautiful, beautiful talk about trauma and steaming
Mm.
and this incredible science. And that's where, pleasure, if
Mhm.
we bring pleasant, then we can process some difficulty too. So
Yeah.
you can sit there and you're steaming. It's wonderful for if you had bad sex and you want to clean it out. If You know, I've had people, I've had some wonderful sessions. They're like, I finally broke up with this dude and I just need to steam him the fuck out of me.
Yes.
Excuse my language. And then, you know, wash that man out of my hair. It's just going to release and reconnect and like, and then this is mine. This is mine. This is the here and now. There it is. There you are, my delicious, honey, beautiful baby right there, you know. And so steaming does that. And one of my main things is breathing, you know, just to breathe into your pelvic bowl. Yeah. So that each inhale, the pelvic bowl slightly opens, you connect, that erectile tissue opens, and then every exhale, it lightly closes. So every breath, you're giving your whole yoni, you're giving your whole genital system a little hug. Every breath.
And I love the movement you're making with your hands, like this dance, this symphony that the body gets to experience. Okay, so let's talk about
naming it.
Yes. Let's talk about the wheel of consent. You've mentioned that before. What is it? How does it work? How is it useful?
So the wheel of consent is made by this wonderful Dr. Betty Martin, and she has a team of teachers. And she might mention some of her mentors, but it's really, I think she really pulled it all together. So you have a pie, the wheel of consent. You have this pie, and you have 4 quadrants. So there's also, you might hear the 4 quadrants of touch. Yeah. So you have giving and receiving across the diagonal. Someone's giving and someone's receiving. So the person who is doing the action, it's for, who is it for? It's for the receiver. This person may be the one in action, but it's for the receiver. And then you have the other 2 quadrants are taking, which is an interesting, and we can all, what? I can take pleasure. I can touch someone for me. So who's doing the touch? Who's doing the action? Because it doesn't have to be touch. I can take you to dinner, and I'm treating you to dinner, and it's for me. It's great, but can I treat you to dinner? I'm going to pay for it, and that makes me feel good that I'm generous and abundant, and then you get this also. And you're offering this, sure, you can take me to dinner. So this allow, offer, allow. Also, and I love this example, say you and your honey are walking down the street and you put your hand on your honey's back and you rub your honey's back. Now, maybe you know your honey isn't feeling so well, and you know they like that their back rub like that. And maybe they even say, oh, can you rub it a little higher? So it's for them. Maybe you're doing it but you have it, they don't want it like that. So it'd be nice if they can say what they want, right? Or maybe you're walking down the street with your honey and you reach out and you put your hand on your honey's back because you're feeling insecure and you want to know that they're there. So you put for some, I'm going to put my hand on their back and it's for me. That makes me feel like, oh, I know you're there. Thank you for letting me put my hand on your back. So you could do the same thing, but who was it for? So you can do these practices where you practice being in the different quadrants.
So the third one was taken. What was the fourth?
That you allow, or it's called allow, or it also can be called offer. Okay. And so, you know, so when you're taking pleasure, may I hold your hand and give it a squeeze? Sure, you can hold my hand. Or maybe you want to do it with a limit. Yes, you can hold my hand, but my right hand, I'm just making this up. My right hand I'm holding a bag, but you can hold my left hand. So I'll turn around. Or yes, you can hold my hand, but can you hold it softly? So in allow, you might have a limit around it. So then it's really then thinking about the yes and the no, and the asking and the asking for. So if you're receiving pleasure, will you scratch my back? If you're taking pleasure, may I put my hand on your back? Yes, no, or maybe with limits. And the first piece also, this other pieces, but this very important piece of what do I want? So even before the may I or will you, what do I want? Oh, you mean I get to think about it? So really pausing and tuning into what do I want?
Yeah.
So we can, do a great, I love this practice. And I do this in my workshops. I do it in session all the time, to take 3 minutes and just say what you want. We did that at the beginning even. What do we want to get this time together? We want to offer breadcrumbs out to the world. We want to be present. I want to be present. I want to be listening to myself and listening to what the universe. I want to be of service. I want to honor this incredible genitalia, and I want everyone to know about it. I want people to know they own their bodies and to inhabit their own bodies.
And I can think of, thank you for sharing that, firstly. There's so many ways that that question is useful and even necessary on the pregnancy and the birthing journey, because you get to your yes and your no in the sense, who is this for?
Yeah.
Right? Is my answer a yes? Is it a no? Or is it with limits or with conditions?
Yeah.
Right? When am I ready? And I even think of it in terms of connecting with the body. Like, what does the body want? Am I feeling a yes? Or is this a yes from my mind because I'm thinking of some other external factors? Right?
Yeah.
Can I root into my body's desire and get consent from my body so that we are in alignment with each other on this birthing journey?
I've had some people come to me recently, especially to use the wheel of consent for birth prep. And it's been so exciting, and so I can see incredibly helpful, so I'm very excited about it. I really do want to sit down. I have to sit down and create a training for doulas to use it. So what do you want to do right now? You're in labor, your contractions. What do you want to do? I want to take a walk down the hall. I want an ice cube. I want you to put your hands on my back. I want you to get the fuck away from me. I want you to give me some space.
Yeah.
I want to breathe. I want this baby. I want to meet this baby. I want to do this the way I want to do it. Who do I want here? What do I want from my partner? You know what? This is what I want from my partner.
Yeah.
And who is this for? I loved this. Like, it was a big revelation. She was like, this is for me. And this is for my baby. Number one, this is for me. So if that nurse comes in, it's actually, it's not for her. This is for me. Oh, I have a banana. Do you want this? You could give something to her, and this is for her. But like, really just saying, this is for me.
Yes.
This is for me. Who is it for?
This birthing experience is for me.
And then we were like, this is for me and my baby. Like, you're still one and the same. It's for both of you. This is, and then it's for your partner on some other, when it's just the different levels. But number one, like, and then also, discovering that that's okay. It is your body that's doing this. So this is about, this is for you. What do you want?
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Reclaiming power.
Yeah.
All right. Tell us about, yes, of course. So the other tool we have here is pleasure and its role in healing and embodiment. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I said that little bit about being able to titrate, but that pleasure. We always are going back and forth. And I love this thing that you could say, oh, where do you want? Like, imagine your special place and you're on a desert island, you're on a beach, you're on an island, it's paradise. And you're really trying to invoke all this pleasure to relax yourself, that you're in a special place. And it's not long before you say, oh, but the sand's going to get in between my toes. Or I wonder if there's going to be bugs. Like, it's natural that we're going to have also uncomfortable. But we could get stuck in what we might call the red, the uncomfortable, the
Mm-hmm.
bugs or maybe
Mm-hmm.
we eat the sharks, and then we go back, but we can also not get stuck in what's difficult. We can reorient to pleasure. So knowing how to keep reorienting to pleasure makes it more, the full spectrum, easier to be with. And we're going to have all of them. It's not like you're always in pleasure. We're going to always be blissfully happy. We're going to have some grief or some pain, but also we're going to be more we're going to feel all of it more. So that's one way. It's just finding the ways to find pleasure so that then it becomes easier to be in some of the difficulty, and we go back and forth. And knowing that we can choose it. Like, oh, you mean I get to choose the pleasure? That's how I get led. I choose. So finding pleasure, pleasure activism. I love Adrienne Maree Brown and that idea of pleasure activism. Staying in that, using joy and love and pleasure. Otherwise, that's the life force. We can't keep going without it.
Right.
We orient to pleasure.
And something you said earlier, I was making this connection. Yeah, you said when we get juicy, they all start to connect, because you were talking about the vagus nerve running all the way down. Like, oh, that is so true. It's like pleasure gets to be the fuel, gets to be the life force, right?
Yeah.
Because like our bodies can't be in this state of depletion, and we're trying to create. We have to create from surplus. We have to create from abundance.
Yeah, I love, tuning into what do I want to do next? What, what do I want to do? And even in my work, and it's been so beautiful in our leadership program, in our decolonial leadership program, I've learned, I get to wake. You might have to have deadlines and whatever, but like, I really want to sit down and write to that person because I'm having an idea about that. I want to do more breath work. I want to work from the breathing and the breath work. I really want to do this steaming and learn more about that and use that. Really going from your pleasure and your peace through your day, through the vision of your work.
Yeah.
Not against it, instead of the freaking grind. No, what's working, what's pleasing. Yeah. It's constantly, that's life force. It's filling us back up. Filling us back up.
It's a lot of how work and, being quote unquote successful is organized. It's from this like toxic masculinity lens, not just masculinity, because obviously we're both masculine and feminine and we need the balance of both, but it's like toxic masculinity that drives you to just keep pushing, and we forget the feminine, we forget the play and the pleasure and the flow. And how we need that for balance. And for most of us, that is our nature. And it's really hard to find rhythm in this toxic masculine that we have been socialized into. And
and that's where I loved, and we both have studied with Mama Gina, and she was a beautiful teacher in that, being powerful and being a leader, but doing it from a yin perspective, not from a drive perspective. And I'm loving learning about now the hormonal cycles, that the vaginal uteral space has a 28-day hormonal cycle. So within that 28 days, we will get the same amount done, but we'll really chill out, and then we'll work, like we'll just want to be and we'll the testicle penis model, that the yang model, it's on a 24-hour, it's like a push, it's a, and yes, we have both, but that, and there's actually different hormonal systems, right? And we're so to stay in our own, and we'll be completely depleted if we try to go on that other one.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you mentioned that.
No, And the work, and I don't particularly, teach that. I'll tell people to check into Alyssa Vitti and all of her work. I'll just make make my clients aware of it and start to look at it.
Yeah, I'm taking notes. I'm always learning something from you.
Yeah, she's wonderful, and she has a lot of resources.
Yeah. So I know that you've also helped people to become pregnant, and I don't want us to end this interview without talking about that.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges that people have come to you with, and how has your work supported them in successfully conceiving?
Yoni steaming. Yoni steaming is amazing.
That.
Yep. I mean, if you think about that dark blood thing, there may just be some old blood that has been stuck there, and it's just not going through. And I wonder, with some of these ultrasounds, if it's like they can't see that. Maybe it's not big enough. I don't know enough, but I do know that I do steaming and that people get pregnant. So definitely steaming. There's something so beautiful to honoring what is going to happen to, sometimes we're very driven on the patriarchal system of what does family look like? What does partnership look like? What does birthing look like? I mean, I had this dear client that we were working on fertility, and she was half Filipino, and it just, in the end, she adopted, she adopted these two, and she got twins, and they were from the Philippines, and it just like reinforced her whole cultural family. And so there could have been this, I wanted to birth through my system, but then it was just absolutely perfect, and who knows? So I love this idea. Sometimes I've studied a lot of psychodrama, and there's some action methods that I use. I also have a master's in theater for educational and therapeutic use. So sometimes concretizing the vision, and I did this myself, like, I want to mother. What's going to happen? Am I going to adopt? And I didn't have a partner. Am I going to find a partner who has a child that I'm going to be a step parent? Am I going to be a community organizer for children and I'm going to mother in that capacity? Am I going to meet someone tomorrow and date, and then we're going to work out, we're going to want to parent together, and that's going to happen? Am I going to get some sperm and then I'm going to have a baby? Am I going to decide to live in community on purpose with a bunch of people and I'm going to parent like that? Like, really laying out all the possibilities and stepping in, like, I want to parent, I do want to parent, who knows how it's going to unfold. So some opening up into that realm sometimes takes the singular vision away, and then it happens, how it's supposed to happen happens. I have my client who ended up having they have a beautiful family, and I love my family, that I was together with my daughter's dad for 9 years, and we had this mother and a father in the home, and our co-parenting situation right now is wonderful. I love that, and I love having my daughter half time and being free half time. I'm always still parenting her when she's not with me, but there's something wonderful about this life that I have. I was very singular on wanting to have this hetero monogamous partnership that was like ingrained in me, and now that I've walked through it, I don't think it's for me, and I didn't know that. I kind of like being alone and being in community. I'm not sure. So sometimes we're kind of stuck, we're stuck on some model that actually isn't working for us.
Yeah, that is just such an important point. And it's making me think of something that came to mind as I was taking a walk in the park the other day, that sometimes we are meant to be the vessel, sometimes we're meant to be the guide, and other times we're meant to be both, and really tuning into like, what do I actually want, right? Like going back to the wheel of consent, what do I want? And tuning into your true desire, the body's true desire, and knowing that it can look different ways, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you reminded me of this other piece about making sure that the space is there. I had this one point, this client, and she was so busy, and she had such a small apartment with her partner. And at one point she said, like, where am I going to put the baby? Like, where am I going to have? And it was like, okay, make time and room. Just like, so, and it's several times I've said, just get a crib. Just get a crib and put it in there. Open a drawer and put some blankets in that drawer. And put the baby in the drawer. Like, just start to make the space. So that's where sometimes some kind of ritual, you just never know. And it's fascinating how many, I'm sure you see it. Like, I've run into a lot of people that the moment an adoption came through, they got pregnant.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's like the energy is created, and so now it gets to just continue flowing.
Yeah. I love it. This one, and she has these two beautiful girls that same age.
Love that. All right, so we're coming close to the end. Is there anything that you want to share with the listeners about anything at all, their bodies, pleasure, anything that you want to leave?
Have a beautiful day. And take a moment, after this, and just ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want to do next? What do I want this afternoon? And maybe just, take some time to follow your pleasure. Take 15 minutes. The next 15 minutes, I'm just going to do what I want. Sometimes I love watching my cats, they take a nap, and then they walk over to the food and they eat the food. They just, what do you want to do next? Just tune into what do you want, and ponder that, and let yourself. And there's this, and Betty talks about it, listen, then trust it. That's what I want. Not what somebody else told me I want. I want, oh, that's right, I want that. Trusting it, then honoring it, then really honoring it. Say, okay, so and then if we need to, communicating it. Well, will you get me a cup of tea?
Love that. And I just remembered, you have a course coming up.
Yes.
So let's talk about your course and just other offerings that you have.
So beautiful in this pandemic that I did not work online before this. And so I had a class that I taught live, and now I've created this beautiful 8-week course. And so we create a community, and in that community, you learn the genital anatomy. We study the anatomy, we look at the slides and the pictures of it, and we learn it. We learn some breath and movement to connect to the genital space. And we do some wheel of consent we do, what do you want? What do you want? We sit there and listen to each other for 3 minutes of what we want. And we tune into that wheel of consent and learn how to the basics of yoni steaming, and a breast massage. And it's an 8-week course that I teach, and it starts September 28th on Tuesday evenings. It's recorded, so if you missed it, it would work, and you could listen to the recording. So 8 weeks on Tuesday evenings.
So sorry, I was about to ask. So people are able to do their own yoni steams after going through the course.
And then actually we do one together. So I teach the basic contraindications and the basics of what it would look like. For bigger conditions, you have to do more than that. And there's certain conditions I'm not qualified to do, but I'll point you in a direction. And then we do a general one. And depending on everybody's menstruation cycle, we try to work it out. Sometimes somebody's in their bleed. And so they'll sit, and I'll have them do something else with us. But we have like a little spa time that we actually on Zoom all do a steam.
That sounds so cool.
It's really cool. And we're all just mellowed, and actually do a breast chest massage as well in together. And that's a full class. So that's because we do a whole with a heating pad and castor oil and talk. And so it takes almost the 2 hours to do that.
Got it. And so this is the first time you're putting this course together, which makes it so exciting.
Yeah. I've done it a few times.
Oh, you've done this. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done it a few times in the pandemic, and but I'm running it again.
Good. Because what I was about to ask is, how do people benefit from the course after they've done it? Like, what are things that you hear from people?
That they continue steaming and they're using it, that things that were going on were getting better, that they're having better sex. That they're having better sex.
Snaps to that.
And what's been also sweet is they've stayed connected sometimes. Some of the communities stay connected. People connect back to each other. They have resources. They something goes on and they remember something that they did and they pick it up again.
Yeah.
The menstruation is good, fertility is good, nice. Any of the things that we talk about will go on to help. Yeah.
Amazing. Like, you are really helping to bring back this wisdom that we've lost, and what a gift that is.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for all the teachers and places that have held on to the seeds and that I've learned from and continue to learn from always. Yeah.
All right. Where can people find you? What's your website? Where are you on Instagram?
Yeah. So Marisa Sullivan Healing is my website. One S. MarisaSullivan.com. MarisaSullivanHealing.com. And on Instagram, 1S, Marisa Sullivan 1. There's only one of me so far that I know of. There is another Marisa Sullivan out there who is an actress. I have not met her, but she also comes up when I come up. And I do individual counseling, and what I'm working on right now, I just have one-offs, but I am creating that it will be, because this work does take time. It's not instant. You can get something instant, but a 3-month, a 4-month container to meet for individuals or couples. But I do just sing also individuals too.
And it's both in person and online, right?
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah, both in person, online, everything. I'm so surprised at what can be done when we embody. And I do help people do that, really get embodied and then do the work online. And we can do so much. I've been able to study a lot of the Wheel of Consent online with Betty and the whole community. And get even deeper into it. And it's amazing what we can do with each other online.
Yeah, amazing. And then what's your email address?
And my email address is marisasullivanhealing@gmail.com.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marisa. Thank you for all that you shared today. Wow. Like, we went deep. We went into history. We went into a lot of things.
Yeah.
A lot of medicine.
It's wonderful. It's so wonderful. I'm so grateful for you.
Same here. Grateful for you.
So beautiful to sit and talk and let it all come out. I feel like this is when we really get it, is when we talk together and share together.
Yeah, thank you. Well, this has been another episode of the Preparing for Pregnancy After Loss podcast, and so much more, right? Preparing for your own rebirth, stepping into the life that you want to create. And I'm expressing so much appreciation to Marisa for all that she shared with us today. Please share this episode with someone you know whose life wants to be lit up and turned on by this wisdom. You know where to find me at The Birth Warriors on Instagram, nataliefacey.com. That's my website, and my email is hello@nataliefacey.com. All right, y'all. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.